The global head of human rights organisation Amnesty International is in New Zealand, arriving last night after visiting people displaced by climate change in Tuvalu and Fiji. Secretary General Doctor Agnès Callamard joins me now in the 3 News studio. Kia ora, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr Callamard, what's your message for the New Zealand government after speaking to people who want to escape the climate crisis in the Pacific?
Well, I think the government of New Zealand should feel that supporting the people of Tuvalu, the government of Tuvalu is part of or central to its contribution to establishing and protecting a rule-based order. Commitments were made in Paris several years ago around net zero emission, around responding to climate change, and around supporting the people on the front line of climate change that have had nothing to do with causing climate change. And it is certainly the case of the people of Tuvalu. This is a small, low-level atoll that is confronting sea level rise. It's one of the poorest countries of the world, and according to science, it could disappear by the end of the century, and some percentage of its territories could disappear by 2050. And I want to reiterate, the people of Tuvalu have had nothing to do with what's happening to them. It is the responsibility of the industrialized nation to respond to what happened, including New Zealand. So New Zealand made commitment in Paris. I think New Zealand wants an international rule-based order, which means implementing your commitment. Otherwise, it will be the rule of the mighty, the rule of the powerful, and for small countries like New Zealand, this is not good news. So by supporting the people of Tuvalu, New Zealand is doing a good thing for the rule-based order. It's doing what is needed under the Paris Agreement, and it's behaving as a good neighbor, as a powerful, strong, good neighbors. And the people of Tuvalu want choice. They have been compelled into living, for some of them, they want to live with dignity. And that is not happening right now under the scheme that has been devised by New Zealand. That scheme is discriminatory, particularly against people with disability, people with medical conditions. It is breaking down families. So Amnesty International is calling on the New Zealand government to provide humanitarian visas to the people of Tuvalu who wants to live. And let me reiterate one more thing. They don't all want to go, contrary to popular belief. They want a choice. They want dignity in their life. And if they need to go, then they would like to go with dignity, and it means with their family, including if they have a disabled child.
There was an example in Amnesty International's report that highlighted the story of a mother who had to say goodbye to her 6-year-old daughter and her husband. They came to New Zealand on a visa, but she had a sight impairment and so could not come.
No.
What is wrong with New Zealand's visa settings at the moment?
Well, I mean, you know, this is exactly what you're saying. Under the visa, the migration path, people with disability, people with medical conditions, and people that are above a certain age, including someone like me, cannot apply to come to New Zealand under that particular visa.
And it's splitting families
up. And it's splitting families. So I met that woman, by the way, in Tuvalu. She hasn't seen her daughter. Well, she sees her when she travels to Tuvalu, but she has not been part of raising her daughter. She has not been part of seeing her daughter change from a 6-year-old to a 16-year-old. And she is profoundly wounded by that experience. We're not talking about lots of people. This kind of discrimination is ruthless. It's taking dignity away from people, and it will take so little for New Zealand to just be a little bit more rights-based and to welcome those those with disability. And if that argument is not good enough, then let's look at the fact that Australia right now has just agreed a treaty with Tuvalu, and that entire family can move and become resident of Australia overnight. Under this agreement, it's a treaty, people with disability that are part of a family that has been processed and approved will be able to move to Australia. We met with the Australian High Commissioner in Tuvalu, and he really explained that it is part of Australia's commitment to the Paris Agreement. It is part of Australia's commitment to ensuring that the people of Tuvalu have a choice with dignity. So what we are asking on the part of New Zealand, that has an even closer cultural, historical, economic relationship with Tuvalu, to please do the right thing.
So you are saying that New Zealand's system currently is ruthless, is the word that you used.
Well, I mean, when people have to choose between staying or being separated from their children, I think it is pretty ruthless.
But speaking more broadly, why should New Zealand shoulder the burden of people that need a new home from the Pacific, from rising seas? The counter-argument that we often hear in New Zealand is that New Zealand is only responsible for 0.17% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and it's just too expensive for our economy to support people from another country.
Well, look, as I have explained, New Zealand has made commitment in Paris, the Paris Agreement on climate change, including net zero emissions by 2050, keeping the temperature to 1.5 degrees and so on and so forth, and climate financing. As of a couple of years, New Zealand is renegating on some of its commitment, so that's not good. It's not the only one, but it's really terrible for the people of Tuvalu. The people of Tuvalu can adapt, and they do adapt. I mean, I met with the Prime Minister. I saw the effort and how the entire population of Tuvalu is committed to finding a way to stay in Tuvalu and to have a future in Tuvalu. They adapt, the so-called adaptation measures. What they cannot do is mitigate climate change because they're not responsible for it. They are not creating the emission that is now destroying their island. We, the industrialized nation of the world, are responsible. So I'm sorry to say, but it's not a matter of size or scale. New Zealand is part of the international community. It is part of the industrialized nation. It has a very important farming sector, which is a huge emission emitter. It must play its role. And its role is, as per the Paris Agreement, its role is to contribute to climate financing. And again, let me reiterate, as a good neighbor, as a powerful neighbor, as a neighbor who is looking at many other powerful actors who may not have such good intention, it is important for New Zealand to keep neighborly relationship with all those in the Pacifics. The Pacifics is becoming a huge zone of geostrategic interest, whether it's about deep sea mining, whether it's about maritime water. As you know, there are many actions right now in the Pacific. I think it is also in New Zealand's geostrategic interest, in the way it wants to see itself in the future, to be perceived by its neighbors as something they can rely on.
So size shouldn't matter in this argument.
It's not a question of size. And again, I think New Zealand should be one of those countries that contribute to a rule-based order. Why? Because when there is no rules, there are weapons. When there is no rules, it is the rule of the powerful. New Zealand is not a powerful state. As you have said, it's a small state. It is in its interest to protect a rule-based order. And abiding by climate commitment, doing the right thing by human rights standards, which are also human rights obligations, it is part and parcel of contributing to strengthening, building a rule-based order that many states are attempting to destroy right now.
Yes, let's talk about the war in Gaza.
Yeah.
And you and Amnesty International called Israel's attacks on Palestinians in Gaza genocide.
Yeah.
In December of 2024,
Yeah.
last year, the United Nations has eventually come to the same agreement in September of this year. What do you make of New Zealand's position?
Well, New Zealand, at some level, New Zealand has done certain number of good things. I mean, they have called for a ceasefire, for instance. They certainly have not been so overtly supporting a genocidal state, but New Zealand should do far more. We have called that a genocide because based on the evidence that we have collected over 6 months, we have no doubt that a genocide has been committed. We're talking about more than 60,000, minimum 65,000 people killed, a third of whom are children. We're talking about an engineered starvation. We're talking about the greatest number of journalists killed, targeted, not just killed by accident, targeted. The greatest number of humanitarian workers targeted and killed. The level of destruction in Gaza is unmatched in our recent world history of conflict, unmatched. There is no doubt too, based on statements from Israeli officials that have been repeated ad nauseum, that there is a genocidal intent. And that has been, it's a majority of legal professions around the world. Israeli organizations in July have also concluded genocide. And as you have said, the Commission of Inquiry has done so. So for New Zealand, again, to look at the evidence and say, look, there is at the very least, a strong presumption that a genocide is taking place is an important step. It is important for them to recognize that Israel has committed extremely grave violations under international law and that justice must be delivered. So calling for a ceasefire was good. It's not good enough. At the moment, we have a ceasefire extremely fragile, and it is not sufficient. We need the root causes to be addressed. Unlawful occupation, apartheid, decades of impunity, lack of justice being delivered, lack of reparations. All of those things must be at the heart of New Zealand policy, at the heart of New Zealand vision, and what it should advocate for at international level.
So it does matter, in your view, whether New Zealand uses a term like genocide, whether it recognises Palestine as a state, which it has not done yet.
It matters that it uses the right word to describe what's happening. So we believe that there is a genocide. Many others do so. We invite them to at least look at the evidence and make their own conclusions. If they cannot use this word for whatever reason, recognize that extremely serious violations of international law have been committed and that these demand accountability. It's important for them to be part of building a future, both for Palestinians and for Israelis. And right now, the path that consists in preserving the unlawful occupation, in fact expanding the unlawful occupation in the West Bank, in doing seemingly very little to prevent occupation in Gaza, that is not putting the roots of long-term sustainable peace for the peoples of Palestine and Israel. And I will urge New Zealand to do far more than it is doing right now, to be one of those strong voices for a peaceful future.
Dr. Callamard, I wanted to ask you about the relevance of Amnesty International today. It has been around for many decades, and Amnesty International Aotearoa has just in recent days launched a new campaign with the tagline, "Is it human? Is it right?"
Yeah.
What is the relevance of Amnesty International today and of that new campaign?
Well, I don't think we have never been more relevant. Why am I saying that? We are I've mentioned the breaking down of the rule-based order, the attacks on the rule of law, both internationally and nationally, the creeping rise of authoritarian practices around the world, the attacks on gender equality, on racial justice, and the fact that many people wonder, what am I to do? I think most people feel that they want to act, which is what the campaign is all about. We all know that we have a moral compass inside us. Most people do. They want to do the right thing. What Amnesty is doing, and we're not the only one, but what we are doing is giving people avenues of action. We're giving them a platform to channel their frustration, their anger, their fears into something constructive. They can campaign, they can advocate, they can protest, they can sign letters, they can come together and strategize, they can give money. And all of that is part of, and in fact, at the heart of pushing back the assault that the world is experiencing on human rights, on equality, on non-discrimination, on the rule of law.
You talked about authoritarian creep.
Yeah.
What is that? And is it something that we need to worry about here in New Zealand?
Well, yes, you certainly need to worry about it. What do I mean by that? It means that for a number of years now, but this has accelerated certainly over the last 10 months under Donald Trump's presidency, there is a normalization of values, quotation mark, behaviors, policies, practices that we thought had been kicked out to a different history.
So executive orders rather than going through the normal political channels.
Executive orders in the US. I hear that here in New Zealand there is the use of urgency that accelerate a process of consultation instead of making it much more thorough. Not comparable to executive orders, let me be very clear, because Donald Trump is on a league of his own. But because he is leading the most powerful countries in the world, his impact on other states is enormous. And what we have witnessed for the last 10 months is an acceleration of the authoritarian creep around the world. Attacks on the right to protest, attack on freedom of expression, freedom of the press, independence of the media. All of these are under threat, along with the right to non-discrimination, gender equality, have been under attack in the United States, and you're seeing that creep a little bit everywhere around the world. It is not just an American phenomenon. Europe, in fact, has been in the midst of it for many years. Last year, climate change activists, Palestinians activists, those denouncing the Israel genocide, all of them have faced the possibility of being criminalized, and some in the United States have actually ended up in prison. So it matters for New Zealand to be part of that international community of attacks on rights, and it matters because New Zealand itself has been tempted by the path. You know, I've mentioned the use of urgency that is breaking down transparency and consultation. We know that the rights of the Maori people have been questioned, if not threatened. There are proposals to curtail or to bring to curtail the right to protest. These are some of the examples of creeping authoritarianism in New Zealand. So yes, it matters. It matters, and people must fight back. They must understand. They need to understand that the wheel is going to be very difficult to stop if you let it run too far and too fast.
I suspect I know what your answer to this might be, but I can't help but ask you anyway. Donald Trump thinks he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. What do you think?
For what? Which peace has he brought? I mean, you know, there is no peace in Ukraine and Russia, far from it. And what peace are we talking about for Palestinians right now? There has been multiple violations of the so-called ceasefire, and the peace plan is not promising any kind of sustainability. So no, he should not be getting any prize. He is, he is in his own country, is curtailing the rule of law, attacking freedom of the judiciary, attacking freedom of the press. He has completely undermined, if not really threatened deeply academic freedom, and migrants, so-called undocumented migrants, are being arrested by masked men driving cars without any identification. I mean, it's absolutely obscene what is happening in the United States right now. So, no, he doesn't deserve a prize.
It's a very strong no from you. Just to wrap up, I just wanted to touch on some of your previous work.
Yeah.
In your role as the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial executions, you led a major investigation into the killing of Saudi journalist, Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi agents, and publicly connected the Saudi prince, Mohammed bin Salman. What was the blowback like for you?
Well, I mean, attacking one of the most powerful men in the world has some risk attached to it.
There were death threats that came, credible death threats from Saudi agents.
Yeah, there were some credible death threats pronounced in the context of UN diplomatic meetings.
In official meetings?
Yeah, in official meetings. So be it. I am a very, and I was, and I continue to be quite privileged. I have a French passport. I think my government, reluctantly maybe, but they would have, and they did actually rise to my protection. I'm very proud and very grateful to all those that, when I was doing this investigation, allowed me to deliver the report I did. I am so proud to have been able to speak on behalf of Jamal, to make the linkages with many journalists around the world, because my report and my work was only one among others. And I think the international media on that occasion has played a fantastic role in ensuring that the voice of Jamal kept resonating, and they do still to a certain extent, and that Saudi Arabia culpability was a very strong message. As a result of it, at least in the years that followed the investigation, I think Mohammed bin Salman was constantly associated with his mastermind of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and I think it's going to follow him, I will say, for the rest of his life. It's not justice, but it's a little bit of ensuring that we do not forget, and that's really important.
Do you worry that it could also follow you for the rest of your life, that they may still come after you?
Oh, well, yeah, well. We'll deal with that if and when it comes. I'm always amazed at people's capacity for revenge and retaliation. So God knows it could happen. But it's not going to stop me from either continuing to denounce Saudi Arabia for other things, because there is there too a real worsening of the freedom of expression space under the so-called modern prince, and it won't stop me from denouncing Donald Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu, or indeed President Putin. We need to be brave. We need to be courageous. I have such incredible privilege. I am running Amnesty International, the largest human rights organization. I have a fair level of protection attached to me. Is there any better way of using all of that but to speak up? if I don't speak up, what does it mean to other people? So I have absolutely no other moral duty but to continue to speak up and denounce particularly the most powerful ones.
We will leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Amnesty International Secretary General Dr. Agnès Callamard. Wonderful to hear your insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much.